All right, what's up, everybody? Good morning. Good morning. Top of the morning to you, as they say in some places. Welcome to the show today. I'm your host, A. Lamont, but you didn't really need me to tell you that, right? Okay. All righty. You're with me on Culturally Appropriate. This is a channel where we explore behavior in our culture, and we're looking at it through a lens, if you will, to see if it's appropriate by certain standards that um, we use. Those standards may consist of society, what's law, what's legal, um, what's appropriate within a particular community, um, religious standards, so on and so forth. But you be the judge. This is open forum. This is open discussion. Before I move into uh, today's deep dive, do you all realize that we have, let's say a little less than 16 or 17 days left in this year? And um, where did the time go? Can you think back over the course of this year and really reflect over the highs and the lows, the accomplishments, the failures, mishaps, some hurdles that you crossed over, maybe some relationships that you formed, some new relationships, or there may be some relationships that you have made an amends to, you know. Um, the time is just really flying by, it seems, right? Because we are getting ready to cross over into 2026. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to hold at this particular time. Unsure of it. And what do you think? Just let me know down in the comments. If you can leave a comment and let me know what your perspectives are, what your goals are. What do you see for 2026? Um, what are some things that maybe you want to carry over into 2026 from this current year that we're in, and maybe some things that you would like to leave behind? Um, be Feel free to leave that down in the comment section down there. Okay. All right. With that being said, let me go over to my share screen here. All right, so where are we going today? Today's topic is going to take us to a, village, if you will, or a suburb of Chicago, Illinois, uh, that's called Robbins. Now, I did like a little quick search on Robbins, and Robbins is not large enough, apparently. Uh, meaning about the population or people that's there. It's not a large enough population to be considered like a city or a town. So it is a village or a little suburb of Chicago. And according to a 2020 census, they had approximately a little over 4,500 people at that time, which, I mean, wow, you talk about probably everybody knows everybody's business. I don't know. I don't know about that. But such places do exist. Now, I don't know what their census may be today, being that we're in 2025. I didn't track that far on that, but you can do that homework yourself. But it's a part of, I think it says Cook County. Yeah, Cook County. And up until, I would say, sometime last year, according to reports, this gentleman here on the screen, he is Mr. Carl Scott. And up until roughly, I think around July, according to reports, he was the police chief of the Robbins Police Department. Now, some reports And then some of the information that I was able to get from his public LinkedIn page reflects that he served 23 years in law enforcement. Now, of the 23 years, most of that reportedly was as a federal agent, which is, by most standards, that's quite an accomplishment. And then I believe that he had maybe, 3 to 4 years roughly where he served as chief of police for Robbins, and that according to his LinkedIn page. Now, chief of police, we all know that that's a high ranking position. He was a high ranking or the highest ranking official in the police department for Robbins at that particular time, and his role, uh, summarizing would have consisted mostly of like overseeing, the operations there, uh, setting policies, overseeing public safety or helping, set up a public safety policy, and then also, managing personnel. Uh, Definitely an accomplishment. Definitely a great profile for a person, right? Okay. So the question would logically follow, how does one go from that position to, and I want to put this up right quick. Give me one moment. There we go. I want to get the right one up. All right, let's add it. Okay. So how does one go from a high-ranking official in law enforcement, such as chief of police, to uh, former police chief being charged? I just want you to think about that for a moment. We're going to get into, the answers, what's been reported about it. But that's something to consider. Not to judge, because I'm not here to judge. I'm not the judge, right? But I am a citizen, and I do have a perspective. Um, I do have an opinion, like most people do. Most people have an opinion, right? And we can learn from our own failures if we sit down and really think about it and reflect, and then we put forth, um, work to do change. And we can also do the same thing with other people. Um, so this is primarily the main reason why we're exploring this, amongst some other things that really stood out to me about this. So with that being said, I want to go to. Let me take this off the screen. Give me one moment. I'm gonna take that off. You got to play around with this stuff, and then let's see where I want to go to. Because I want to play, yeah, this is where I want to go. All right. Let's share it. Let me bring it up on the screen. Okay. Here we go. Now, let me get over there. All right, there we go. Okay. Now, this is at the time Police Chief Carl Scott. And I just want you to take a look at this still shot, and you tell me what you see that's of concern in the still shot. This is dated July 1st, 2024. So this is when this incident took place. When it was captured, we see at least one, two, three individuals. I'm going by this person's head right here. There could potentially be more. We'll get into the reports of that, but there's at least three officials here, one being a high ranking official, this being former police chief Carl Scott. And then we have a citizen here. We have this gentleman here. He's a man. He's reportedly the victim. Excuse me. And we'll get into him here. But I want you just to watch this clip with me. And as you watch it, I admonish you to do what it is that I did, which was I immediately started just kind of jotting down the emotions that I was feeling and the thoughts that were coming to my mind as I viewed this image. This is a report by CBS News Chicago. So let's take a look at it.
What some call disturbing body camera video this week of the now former Robbins police chief beating a man in an interview room.
Tonight in an interview you'll see only on CBS News Chicago, former Chief Carl Scott spoke to our Jermont Terry, apologizing and taking responsibility for what.
Okay, so I want to stop right here. Let's go back a little bit. Let's go back. Because a lot happened within, we haven't even gotten through the whole entire clip here, but a lot happened within these few seconds. So let's go back for a little bit. And I'm not going to make this a long video because really the clips here speak for themselves. But we can comment on it and see what we can learn. So let's go back. So at the start, make sure we're all the way back here, not that far back. Okay. So now this is the posture here. And already this is an intimidating posture. Look at where this gentleman is at, the victim. Now he's seated. He's not even equal to him. He's seated. He doesn't appear to be restrained. He does appear to be controlled. He doesn't appear to pose any type of a threat to this gentleman or anybody else. I mean, especially when you've got two other individuals present in the room who are authority figures. You got this gentleman here, Mr. Scott, towering. I want you to think about that. You're towering over him, and then you've got him cornered. If you really look at the optics of it, this gentleman is cornered. He's backed up against a wall, right? Down in a vulnerable position. That's not a good look, and it warrants, or what naturally follows logically is why? What's going on here? And then you've got the onlookers, right? We're going to consider them to be onlookers. All right, so let's go back. Let's look at this again. Then we'll just let it play through.
Shocking and what some call disturbing body camera video this week of the now former Robbins police chief beating a man in an interview room.
Tonight in an interview you'll see only on CBS News Chicago, former Chief Carl Scott spoke to our Jermont Terry.
I thought I was going to let it play through, but I'm sorry, I got to comment because there's some things that invoke me. I know I saw at least one punch, if not more punches. I did not see this gentleman get up and respond back to him with the same type of action, but you punched him at least once, if not more, in the chest. You pushing his head up against the wall. And naturally, this gentleman here, his reflex is to put his hands up in defense. That's a natural stance. That's a natural reaction whenever someone is coming towards an individual to do harm to them, is to put their hands up that way. I don't see this gentleman swinging back at them. I see him putting his hands up to this then police chief. Now, as you can see right here in this frame here, you've got this officer. You leaned up against the wall. You're watching, and it would imply that you're okay with what's going on. If you weren't, I don't understand why you would not have tried to intervene to try to help get some control in that situation, to try to minimize this and gain control over it, because this is a bad look. This is a bad look, especially when you consider past events with some police agencies and police departments and things that have occurred that have been reported. Yes, the most recent that comes up is going to be George Floyd. He's the most recent, and we can go, back in time from there and reference some other incidents. But this is a bad look. Then you've got this gentleman here who's standing. Now you're just as close in close proximity. You mean to tell me that you couldn't use better judgment and better reason to try to help the police chief who's supposed to be guiding you to gain control and get better control of his actions before he does even worse? Let's continue.
Apologizing and taking responsibility for what happened.
For more than a year, the former Robbins police chief has been under scrutiny for what played out in the lobby here at the police station. Carl Scott recently pled guilty to battery and is breaking his silence about a decision which cost him his career.
Okay, I got a question. So this happened in 2024, and he just recently pled guilty to battery? Interesting. But your role is to protect and to serve. It's very interesting. Okay, let's continue.
I don't care what you got.
You're watching Carl Scott roughing up a man in the back room of the Robbins Police Department. The incident happened in July 2024, but the body camera worn by officers is just getting released of the then chief of police losing his cool and becoming violent.
Hold on.
Becoming violent.
Let's go back.
It's just getting released of the 24, but the body camera worn.
Look at this. What does that say? Citizens first. I just want you to think about that. In the context of what's going on. Okay, so this gentleman here is one of the ones that was in the room in that frame that we just saw. This is a police chief. But that just stood out to me. Citizens first. Obviously not. No. Let's continue.
By officers is just getting released of the then chief of police losing his cool and becoming violent.
Everybody needs to know the why, not the one-sided narrative.
Scott understands the video is damning, and he admits on that day he should have done one thing.
Walk away.
Instead, Scott says he let this man, who CBS Chicago.
And so this is the reported victim, just so that you know.
Identified as James, get the best of him. James came into the station filming and refused to stop recording. When Scott was called down to the lobby, he claims the man threatened his family.
When we humanize the badge, so when we humanize that, then we understand.
Okay, now right here, excuse me, as a viewer, we all have our opinions on what's happening here. Is this supposed to be your emotion? Because I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I am of the opinion, in light of some other stuff that I've seen, in this particular moment, you felt like that was your opportunity with lights and camera and action to forcibly try to produce, tears of, I guess, shame, tears of sorrow. I don't know what you're trying to do here, but you're trying to appeal to emotions, but you're not doing a good job, in my opinion, because I do not believe that it's authentic. I don't. There's something about his body language, something about his face that stands out to me that speaks arrogance. It speaks justified. He feels like he's probably just. I mean, because this happened last year, and the report, what we just heard in the clip earlier, was that you just pled guilty to battery. So then what were you doing all of this time after that? Were you fighting against, or you were in opposition of what had been reported by the victim? I'm not buying this. Let's continue.
You understand the frustration. You understand what it took You understand what's at stake. Do you understand what you're protecting? So then the badge meant nothing at that point.
Okay, but now here's the thing to me. Based on the reports and based on what we just saw, what brought us to that point was that the victim, he came into the government office there and he was filming. And what you asked him to stop filming, and he said he wasn't going to stop filming because it was his First Amendment right. Now, to me, as an officer who's supposed to be sworn in to serve and protect, and then that of a chief of police, you can't get up to be a chief of police except that you demonstrate some degree or higher level of competence, judgment, and self-control and reason. Logic that's going to help govern your behavior and help govern, your interactions and your exchanges with the greater society. And of course, that's going to depend on the context and what's going on. So I'm not taking that away, but that's not what we saw in the clip there earlier. Now, to me, the easiest thing would have been to do was to have asked the gentleman to leave, the victim. That would have been the easiest thing for you to do. That would have been better judgment. You using your better judgment, your higher sense of judgment. Asking him, hey, okay, you step out. You're going to have to leave. Step out. You don't want to follow what it is that we're asking you to do. You're here on our premise. This is government premise. You're coming in. You're trying to record, and we're asking you not to record. Now, you can't take the phone from him, right? Because you don't have any basis to do that because that's his personal property. But you certainly can ask him to leave. Okay, step out, sir. We need you to step out. When you come back, if you want to come back in, you cannot have your phone up, recorded. We ask you not to do that. We govern, the rules, what goes on in here. You can come back once you put the phone down and stop recording. But you don't allow your emotions to escalate, and then you're talking about he made a threat on your family. Well, now you know how to handle that. You know how to handle that legally. So no, I'm not buying this. And this look right here says a lot of stuff to me. This says a lot to me. What does it say to you? Let me know down in the comments. Let's continue.
His actions cost him his badge.
I first initially came to Robbins as the deputy chief.
And his law enforcement career, which included 23 years as a federal agent before joining Robbins PD.
A defaming of my name and has caused a strike against my integrity.
But the man on the end of those punches described a much scarier situation that day.
And he told the two officers to cut the cameras off. And they just started beating me.
What did you mean when you said cut the cameras off?
My mind wanted to hold a conversation with him.
Scott resigned days before.
No, you didn't want to hold a conversation with him. Now that's a lie. And I can't believe how the degree that he's going to as a chief of police. You have 23 years in the game at the federal level. Now at this point that you're telling him to cut the camera, you've already kind of started into assaulting the man. You've already started into that, and you allowed what he was doing with his phone. And what you allegedly say that he said, you allowed that to escalate to what we see here that played out. That cost you your career, 23 years that you put in. It cost you your career and your reputation. That's amazing. Not to mention that you are a black man. I just want that to sink in and to settle in to people. This is certainly black on black crime. And I'm not trying to bring race in and argue race. That's not what's going on. But I do want to put this point out there because as black men, which I am, I'm a black male, we automatically or historically, we have been looked at as being violent. right? You know, violent men, and that idea oftentimes it dictates or it hovers over the interactions that we have with people in law enforcement. Not all people, but some people. And in this frame here alone, there's two black men. Now here it is. You in a small village. So you're dealing with a small group of people. You all should be familiar with one another. You're talking about over 4,500 people. That's a small group. That's like what? Maybe 2 to 3 high schools put together. You're dealing with a small group of people. You should be familiar with one another. You're a high-ranking official, and then you've got this gentleman over here. I'm floored. I'm floored by this. This is something else. Let's continue.
The Robbins mayor wanted to terminate him, and he hopes any cop or person can learn from what he calls a huge lapse in judgment.
One mistake doesn't define a person.
And after that 2-year probation period, Scott won't be watched anymore, but he will never be allowed to work in law enforcement again here in Illinois. In Robbins, Jermont Terry, CBS News, Chicago.
Okay, I want to stop at this point. So 23 years went down the drain for you. You have a victim, which I'm going to listen to the victim side here in just a moment. You have a victim here, someone who looks like you. That's the thing. You share that in common, that you're both black men. And all of this over a phone, over him recording his device. He's recording. You being a chief of police at the time, a high-ranking official in the department there, you would think that you would have, and you talk about lapse in judgment, you would have thought that you would have used better reasoning and better judgment and let cooling heads prevail. The simple thing would have been to have told him, sir, okay, you're going to have to step outside because I've asked you to stop recording at this time. That would have been a simple thing. And then, you could have argued that out in a mediation meeting or whatever, or some type of meeting if the victim wanted to challenge your authority on that. You could have argued that out, but it should not have gotten to this point. I want to stop sharing this screen. Let me go over here because there's something else I want to look at. So we're going to take that down. And I want to bring up something else that I wanted to look at. Because we're going to get into how some things that we do, well, everything that we do has a consequence. But sometimes there can be ramifications, meaning that it can cause a domino effect. And we're going to look at that as it pertains to Mr. Scott. But I want to go to a clip of the victim. Let me share that screen right quick. And I think I already have it up. Yeah, I do. Okay, so let me go back over and put up something else. One moment. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's get into a little interview with the victim. The page.
Amid claims he assaulted a man in Village Hall.
That man sat down exclusively with our own Andrew Ramos to tell his story for the very first time.
I didn't know. You know, I start thinking about all type of stuff like George Floyd. I just start thinking about it. You know, my mind was just racing.
His followers know him as Tyrant Terminator Audits on YouTube. And
let me stop. As you can see, this is a CBS News report out of Chicago. So let's continue. And this is the perspective or the testimony, so to speak, interview with the victim in this situation.
And because of what happened to him, we're only going to use his first name, James, as he says he's still coping with trauma.
How you doing, officer? Good, how you doing? Pretty good.
It's an exchange James has had countless times.
You cannot videotape me.
Where he films interactions with officers.
You're not arrested, but you can't stay here all day.
And other public employees in government buildings. A form of activism is called an audit, all to test whether.
I'm going to pause for a second. I want to point something out to you as an observation. Did you notice how the other people, and we're going to get into the victim here, into his channel a little bit, because I went and took a look at his channel and I'm like, okay, brother, I don't know. You might need to kind of sit down and rethink about how you're moving and some things. But I want you to take note of how different individuals who were in the same position as the police chief, how they handled the victim, you know, coming into these facilities and trying to record. I want you to take a look at that. There's a stark contrast between them, who were not public officials sworn in, you know, as law enforcement, and the chief of police. Let's continue.
First Amendment rights are respected. On July 1st, a visit to Robbins Village Hall, he says, spiraled out of control when he came face to face with former acting police chief Carl Scott.
He pulled out his personal phone. He started recording me, and I told him that I was going to get a FOIA for that video that he was making, and I was there to, you know, file a complaint.
A FOIA is a Freedom of Information Act request, a form requesting records from a public agency, and that complaint is for what James says was over his first visit to Village Hall back in March, when he first met Scott. That encounter captured on video.
Okay, so their first encounter was in March. Okay, and this will be some footage from that. Okay. Looks totally different. Let's go.
Okay, right now you have to leave.
It ended in an arrest where James was charged with It ended encounter captured on video. When he first met Scott, that encounter captured on video back in March. When he first met was over his first visit to Village from a public agency, and that complaint is for what James says was over his first visit to Village Hall back in March. When he first met Scott, that encounter captured on video.
Okay, right now you have to leave.
It ended in an arrest where James was charged with disorderly conduct and breach of peace.
Okay, so what? Now here's my question that would logically follow, right? Now, based on the information here, these two gentlemen first, you know, came head to head with each other or introduced to one another in March of 2024, right? Okay. Same scenario, if you will, same factors here. Miss James, the victim, is trying to do recording there. You know, yes, I would say that is a nuisance. If all you're doing is you coming into a place and you always got your phone up and you recording, you know, you've got all kind of people there. They're trying to do their job. They're trying to do their work, this, that, there, and the other. And you just a regular, you know, citizen, Joe Smo, like everybody else. You coming in every time they see you, you coming in with a camera up with the purposes of recording. They don't know why you're recording. You don't have their permission to record them. They don't know what you're doing with that footage, right? Okay. But now there's a stark contrast here with how the chief of police then handled the situation back in March versus how you handled that in July. What is that? That's a little shy of 4 months. So what happened? How did we get from this matter here where Mr. Scott, you were more controlled, you were more contained. The way that you handled it was reasonable. You know, you're telling him that he can't do it or he needs to leave. And then you all wound up arresting him. You charged him. Okay, that to me, that should be a normal course of events. That's how you handle it. But then it escalated and we got to what we got to in July. That's very interesting. Let's continue.
Both charges later dismissed. His return to Village Hall started out like they all do, on a cell phone. But this time around, James said things took a very scary turn when the acting chief did not let him leave. Now, footage of that encounter, unclear, because his phone was taken from him.
He started to ask me for my personal information, like my name and stuff, and where's your ID.
As he is escorted to a back room, James says Chief Scott smacked his phone, which was recording everything, out of his hand. It's the last time James saw the device.
So he grabbed me by the back, slammed me up against the wall in the corner, and he opened up this door to the back, and he was 2 officers with us, Officer Harden, Sergeant Yates, and he took me in this room, slammed me down on like this little metal plate where you sit at, and he told the 2 officers to cut the cameras off, and they just started beating me.
That attack, he says.
Okay, so let's stop right here because I think we're done with some of his statement that we got through CBS News here. Now, some might say, "Oh, Lamont, he put a little acting in there. I detect a little acting, on his part too." Okay, I give you that. It's possible, right? It's possible that he did a little acting there or whatever to serve his purposes, whatever his purposes may be or will be. But we can't deny what it is that he suffered. We can't deny what he was subjected to in those clips prior. He was a victim. He was a victim of assault. And so, then keep this in mind. He's a man, right? This is a man who, at the hands of another man and then 2 bystanders there, which neither of the 2 in the clip that we saw appeared to even try to attempt to step in and try to defuse the situation. But here this is a man, and he's not no little man either, right? He's a big man. He's stocky. He was, if you put him side by side, him and the police chief, they were equal in that sense, right? Okay. Now, that man don't come across to me like he does that on a regular. Allow some other man to grab him and yank him around like that. And I mean, you go and you punch that man in the face. I mean, like direct. That was a direct punch to his face, a direct hook to his face. And then you pushing his face out, pushing his body and his head all up against the wall and all down on the desk and got your hands around his neck. I would say, if he had to call him out outside on the street, I think they would have been tussling and it would have went wherever it would have went from that time. So, that's a lot for that man to take in mentally and emotionally, right? Every time that he thinks back about that was on record. And now it's out here, out on social media, it's out on the internet, right? So his sense of pride, his sense of, I don't want to say manhood, but as a man, that sense of pride that we can carry, from our physical strength and just, by nature, who we are, he took a loss that day. Now, on the flip side, I believe he's going to have a payday. We're going to have to follow the story and see. I do believe that he's going to have a payday. Okay. So, the payday might make up for all of that. We shall see. We'll see how that goes. Okay. I wanted to go to his, let me stop sharing the screen. I want to go to his YouTube page. So let me take this down right quick. And then I'm going to put up his page right quick. Let me go in. There it is. Okay, let me put it up on the screen. All right, so here's his page, the victim. Tyrant Terminator audits. Now, I went and I took a look at the description of the channel, what the channel purpose is. It was created in March of 2021. And he states here their purposes for being there is to help build a community of support, to help enhance the lives of those affected by tyranny from public officials that display tyrannical behavior, police brutality, and governmental bodies that try to assert unlawful authority. Now, I'm going to say this, that based on the event that took place there in July, that he was a part of, he's proven his point in here. That behavior certainly was, tyrannical in a sense, and it was definitely unlawful. It does fit in the scope of police brutality, and it was committed by a government official, somebody who's a representative of a government body, that being the former chief of police, Mr. Scott. I don't want to play any of his clips because I don't have time for anybody trying to do any strikes. But this is his page, Tyrant Terminator Audits, and you can go and check out some of his clips here, his shorts that he has, and additional information, just to get a feel for what it is that he does, and what his intent is, and you can determine if he kind of puts himself in harm's way or not. I'll leave that up to your opinion, there on that, to check that out. Okay. Now, last, as I'm getting ready to wrap this up, so let me take this down right quick. And I want to put up one last thing here related to the former chief of police. Let me pull it up right quick. Okay. All right, I want to make sure I got the right one. And I do. Let me add it to the stage. Okay. Let me go over. All right, here we go. Okay. And this is a report by, this is ABC, Eyewitness News. You can see the title of the article, Former Robbins Police Chief Faces Calls to Resign from Madison School District Over Battery Video. This is dated Wednesday, the 10th of December. So it looks like somewhere in the span of time from him resigning from the Robbins Police Department up through current, that you got a position as the Madison School, with the Madison School District. And I think he was like, what was it? I wrote it down. What his position was, but we'll go into the clip and see here. But I talked earlier about, how things that we do have consequences, and sometimes they can have ramifications like a domino effect. But let's listen here. Let's just kind of see where things are at currently, because this video of the assault, this came out recently here. So let's listen. Oh, let me take it off. Sorry, y'all. Let me back it up. There we go.
Carl Scott Sr. stepped down as Robbins police chief more than a year ago following that violent altercation that was captured on video. Those concerns have now followed him to his new position here on the school board, with demands for a second resignation. But Scott says he's not backing down.
Oh, Vice President.
That video show violence is the answer.
This footage of then Robbins Police Chief Carl Scott Sr. hitting a man in front of other officers.
How dare you not take accountability?
Has parents raising concerns at Wednesday night's District 159 school board meeting in Madison, where Scott, now serving as the school district's vice president, faced calls for his resignation.
I just hold on. I'm sorry, y'all. But let me get the shot. Okay, there we go. I just want you to take a look at this profile pic, his pose, the face, not nothing else, not the suit, not the tie, not his haircut. He has the hair very well lined up. Your edges are lined up, very good trim of the beard and all that. But that's not what I'm looking at, right? I'm looking at the position of the face. Now, this photo would have been taken sometime following that incident that happened back in July of 2024. This is the same facial expression, if you will, that we saw. I don't know if you saw it, but that I saw in that interview that he did with CBS News in Chicago. Kind of like a flare. This is how I interpret it: a flare. Head up, nose up. Righteous, if you will. That I've done nothing wrong. I've done nothing wrong. I maintain my pride. I maintain my position. It does not speak humility to me. Does not. That's very poignant to me. Very, very much so. Let's continue.
I've accepted my accountability, whether I felt that it was right or wrong.
He's just not a role model for our children, and I think it sends a very damaging message to our children.
The altercation happened July 1st of last year inside the Robbins police station. The video shows Scott beating and shoving a man who showed up.
And I'm gonna say this. I can understand this latest point. I'm gonna tell you why. It's very simple. The idea would be if he could do that to another human being in that situation, when he loses his temper, when he loses his cool, what might he do, if he engages one of our students or one of the children, or he gets, angered and he has to deal with, another competing board member. How do we know that he's not going to display the same type of behavior, the same type of reaction? So I can understand her concern. Now, mind you, this video just came out here recently this year. It had to have just come out probably sometime maybe in this month, December, because it's been circulated. Let's continue.
There to file a complaint against Scott. Scott later resigned as police chief and in August pleaded guilty to battery.
That person makes a living out of trying to get a rise out of people like you and me. And it's very sad that that's the type of community that we're in.
I'm hoping that they will make the decision to remove him as a role model and from the board. If not, I will gather the community to demand that he is removed from the board.
While school leaders did not directly respond to the complaints brought up in the meeting, they did assure parents will have a response within the next 5 business days. As for Scott, he's pointed to his decades in law enforcement serving the community and says if the school board asked him to step down, he will fight for his position.
Very interesting, and which he does. He has a right to fight, to keep his position right. So I'm not saying anything against that. This I would say, let me pull this down off the screen for a second. Give me a second. Okay, there we go. This is going to be an interesting ride, I should say. So they said, according to the report, that the district has about 5 business days to respond to that. So I'm thinking this is going to be sometime in the upcoming week that a decision should have been reached and maybe some reports will come out. So we will see what will become of that, right? Okay. But in closing, I want to say that we've really got to think about what we do, what goes on in the culture. We've got to remember that our actions, even though we can be apologetic and we can be sorrowful We can show regret for that. We can, demonstrate rehabilitation, things of that nature. But sometimes the consequences that's related to certain things that we do or don't do, they can have long-term lasting effects beyond what we would like, stemming from just one moment in time, one incident where if we had have used better judgment, better reasoning, and in this situation here, if people had have held us accountable, such as those two officers that were there in close proximity viewing what was going on, I feel like, they had some liability there as well. I don't know what's going on with them, but I'm just saying you both were in the room as well. And at least one of you, if not both of you, should have been seen, speaking up and trying to diffuse the situation. I don't know how they argued that or whatever, but that's a lasting image as well. So just think about what it is that you do and how you interact with other people and engage them and handle situations where tempers are flaring and you're feeling feelings of anger and malice, and you think that you want to lash out. There's no basis on it. Just kind of stop and think and take a cool down and walk away and maybe let somebody deal with that until you come back and you can have that voice of reason and let cooling heads prevail, as they say. Thank you all for taking the time to stop by and view the video. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.